Everything started because I was the typical entrepreneur working long hours, and I started wondering why Elon Musk is taking me to Mars, but I still spend a third of my life on a piece of dumb foam. And how can I recover faster, right? Then is when the dots between having been an athlete and an entrepreneur started connecting. And I say, look, I can fix this problem. It doesn't make sense that I spend 30 years of my life on a piece of dumb foam, and then I expect to wake up fully refreshed.
Matteo, thanks so much for coming on today. We're thrilled to have you on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I think what would be good for our audience maybe is could you maybe give a little bit of your background before you arrived at EightSleep?
Yeah, sure. When I was a teenager, I was an athlete. I was playing tennis tournaments. I was also doing ski races. I also raced with cars. So I have been a car racer for some time. Then I became a lawyer. I worked for two of the largest law firms in the world, in UK and Europe. Then I started two companies. Both of them, they were in clean tech, specifically in solar. And then I started EightSleep. Everything started because I was the typical entrepreneur working long hours, and I started wondering why Elon Musk is taking me to Mars, but I still spend a third of my life on a piece of dumb foam. And how can I recover faster, right? Then is when the dots between having been an athlete and an entrepreneur started connecting. And I say, look, I can fix this problem. It doesn't make sense that I spend 30 years of my life on a piece of dumb foam, and then I expect to wake up fully refreshed.
So was it something where you just kind of felt burnt out from law school and being an entrepreneur, and you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this?
Yeah, so I started looking at a couple of things. First, I wanted to sleep less so I could do more during the day. And second, I wanted to recover faster because I was tired. Right? And now, as an athlete, I know how important recovery is. And as an entrepreneur, I always think of my body like an athlete would do. So I really try to be, really pay a lot of attention about how I feel, what kind of energy I train a lot. I take care of my nutrition, and it was making no sense that in a third of my life there is no technology, but I still expect to wake up refreshed and ready to go.
So was sleep super important to you when you were an athlete growing up, or was it something like, kind of put on the back?
Yeah.
I know certain guys in my profession, like it's very, very important. Like you look at the Tom Brady's, the guys who have been able to last in the NFL. And then there's some guys who are like, it's important. I'll nap. Maybe I'll get 8 hours. But for you, was that something that was always important to you, or you got burnt out and you're like, I need to focus more on this?
It's more the latter. I think when I was an athlete, I was a teenager, and as a teenager, even if you don't sleep, long hours, just sleep 7 hours, probably you still feel good. But as you start now crossing your 30s, is when you start now really trying to maximize everything you can, and that is usually when you realize that sleep is a big deal.
So in terms of efficiency, I've seen you tweet about sleep fitness. Could you kind of talk what you mean by that and what that concept is?
Yeah, so we have a very different approach to sleep compared to what everyone else does in the space, and probably is still connected to to my past. And going to sleep is not a waste of time. Sometimes you hear people saying, "Oh, I will sleep when I'm dead," or there in the 90s there were these entrepreneurs saying, "Oh, I just sleep 4 hours. I'm the tough guy. I don't need to sleep more." For us, sleep is like going to the gym. In the same way, that you put the effort and you're intentional to go every day to the gym to train and to stay fit, the same approach needs to apply to sleep. You go to sleep 7 to 9 hours because that is what your body needs. And that is what you need to then feel energized and to be able to be at peak performance. So be intentional and put the time is a sort of exercise, is sleep fitness.
So is there room to get better at sleep? And I guess what I mean by that is I've heard the standard, right, is 8 hours of sleep, right? But is it something where you guys are trying to engineer something that you become more efficient, where you don't need 8 hours, but you're so efficient that you only need on the clock 6 hours?
Correct. That is part of our vision. Our vision is based on two things: compressing your sleep and saving your life. Compressing your sleep means that through technology, we will adjust and change things while you are asleep to maximize your sleep performance. So, what if you could sleep only 6 hours and get more rest than when you were sleeping 8 hours? At the same time, during those 6 hours, we will scan your body to be able to identify if there is anything wrong in your body or anything that you should pay attention to live a longer and healthier life.
Hmm. We'll get into a little bit, I think, of your technology that you guys are doing in a little bit, but I'm interested kind of what your routine has involved or evolved into in terms of your sleep. What are your kind of sleep habits right now in terms of how you prepare to go to sleep and then what your sleep actually looks like at night?
Yeah, obviously I'm a sleep geek, right? It's part of my job. So I really try to do everything you can think of. And I could talk for hours, but I'll try to summarize and it will still seem a lot. But bottom line, before dinner, usually I do what I call a thermal shock. So I try to do a shower that is both hot and cold. I keep switching. So I try to create this thermal shock. If I'm in an hotel or I have the opportunity, I do a sauna and an ice bath. This really helps me to relax and is mentally that moment of the day when I stop working and I start relaxing. Second,
What is it doing to the body? What does a thermal shock do the body that gets you ready for sleep?
yeah, it's really like probably you have done several times, a sauna and an ice bath. It's this moment where it really reinvigorates your body. And on one side, there is the sauna where you sweat it out and you start relaxing and it helps for recovery. And then you have this thermal shock with the ice bath that it creates a sort of adrenaline. It's sort of Wim Hof method. You can also combine it with breathing, but it's really a moment for me with my body to tell myself, okay, now it's time to relax. Then I combine that with lights. So in my house, I have Philips Hue, and so they switch to orange around 7 p.m. And then every 30 minutes they dim down up to the point where at 9:30, around 9:30, they turn off. I use melatonin from time to time. I use a massage gun, like an hyper ice, while I'm, the 30 minutes before going to bed to kind of relax my body. And I also do a couple of mobility exercises. And then temperature. So I start setting the temperature in my bedroom. I set around 72. And the reason why I don't go down to 68 or anything colder is because obviously my bed with our technology will change the temperature during the night to maximize my sleep.
It sounds like you're just all in on this sleep. Is it because you believe it's just that important? I mean, obviously this is your job to develop this technology and it's what you're working towards. For somebody like me, it's very, very important to my job, but is it so important that like an everyday entrepreneur or just an everyday business person that works 9 to 5 or a parent, should they be taking the extent that you are in terms of maximizing the quality of their sleep? Is it that important?
It's that important. And it's that important for a mom, for a doctor, for you, for me. If you want to be at your peak performance and you want to live a healthier and longer life, sleep is the secret hack. I always say when I get interviewed that nowadays being sleep deprived is the new smoking. So if you don't take care of your body, is the equivalent of smoking 10 years, 15 years ago.
What, cause I'm running on a little bit of sleep debt right now. I had to travel back home for something and I came back and I've definitely felt like a little bit of just grogginess. What, can you explain maybe the concept of sleep debt and what the research shows and what you mean by that?
Yeah, so sleep debt is the delta between the amount of time you should have spent sleeping and the amount of time you effectively spent sleeping. And let's say it's an hour, right? You had to sleep 8 hours and you just slept 7 hours. So you have 1 hour of sleep debt. You have only 2 days to fully recover that debt or otherwise it's gone. And so you will substantially sort of accumulate behind the scene this sort of sleep deprivation. So the bottom line is, if you're sleep deprived, you need to try to use the next 2 days to fully recover. Otherwise, it's something that will just accumulate in your body. As you were saying, rule of thumb is that you should sleep between 7 and 9 hours. One of the good tests I always recommend to people, if they want to know if they should sleep more or not, is try to do this exercise. For 1 week, sleep 1 hour more every single night. At the end of the week, you will have slept 7 hours more than usual. And then you tell me how you feel. So essentially, you slept one night more, right, at the end of the week, because you slept 7 hours more. Just tell me how you feel. If you feel better, if you feel super energized, like a superhero, then you already know that you should sleep more. If you feel the same, probably you were already on the right track.
So what about these guys, like some mental toughness guys that I look into, like David Goggins and Jocko Willink, who, you know, pride themselves on getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I think a lot of people are like, that's tough. And you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. What actually is taking place from a fitness and longevity standpoint that maybe people are missing?
Yeah, so let's start from a stat, right? From numbers. Only 1 out of 4 million people can sleep between 4 and 6 hours without hurting its own health. And these people, they have modified genes. So 1 out of 4 million people, again, can sleep less than 6 hours without impacting its own health. So unless you're one of these people, you shouldn't sleep that or that amount, right? So you can wake up at 4:30. I tend to wake up at 6. I just go to sleep very, very early, and that is completely fine. There is another debate about, okay, what are the most restful hours of the night? And usually it's the first part of the night, but that is a different discussion. So the impact of sleep, in particular sleep deprivation, on your health is massive. And first, there is a direct relationship between sleep and nutrition, and sleep and exercise, right? So sleep and nutrition, if you're sleep deprived, the bottom line is that you will very likely start craving junk food. You could create and become insulin resistant, which means that you will start eating more carbs and other, again, foods that can have an impact on your glucose. Second, you will be more prone to injuries if you're an athlete. Obviously, you will have less energy. But in general, there is plenty of medical evidence that sleep deprivation can have an impact on blood pressure, on HRV, and your heart rate at rest, and many more.
How can I know? How can I know if I'm one of those 1 in 4 million people that can? Is it just personal experiment and see how you feel, and just kind of take a few months worth of data and say I slept maybe for this month do 4 to 6 hours, and the next month 7 to 8? How can you tell somebody how much sleep they need?
Yeah, I think you can prove it with a genetic test. Or otherwise, what you could just, probably you already know, you sleep 4 to 6 hours and you still feel great. But again, you are 1 out of 4 million people. So most of the times what it might happen is that people think of being in that group, but they are not. And the way you can see it is if you need to nap, how you feel while you're driving, how much coffee do you need to drink. And in general, you should look at your biometrics again, like heart rate at rest and HRV.
I want to get back to, you mentioned some things you did before bed, but you also started talking a little bit about nutrition. Are there certain things to do or stay away from a nutritional standpoint that help you, I guess, improve the quality of your sleep?
Yeah, there are. So the first thing that is really important to say, and it's something that will change over the next years, is how everything is personal, right? So what works for me might not work for you. And until now, health has been based on this rule of thumbs where, okay, you should sleep between 7 and 9 hours, but everyone is different. Maybe I need an hour, 8 hours and a half, and maybe you just need 7 hours and 45 minutes. Same thing for coffee, same thing for alcohol, same thing for food. And now we can talk about that. So rule of thumb is you should try to eat at least a couple of hours before going to bed. There is some medical evidence that if you eat carbs could help you to fall asleep faster, but you will have a less restful sleep. And in particular, carbs might have an impact on your sleep stages. The other big thing is alcohol. Alcohol has a major impact on your sleep, in particular on your heart rate at rest and your HRV. So heart rate at rest will be higher, which is bad, and your HRV will be lower, which is bad. Same for coffee. Rule of thumb is you should stop drinking coffee 8 hours before going to bed. But then everyone is different, and so maybe it's 8 hours for me, and maybe it's 4 hours for you.
Can you explain the carb piece a little bit more? What's taking place there with the sleep stages? What does that mean?
Yeah, so a lot of these, let's call them ingredients, right? Or like the carbs, but to a certain degree, even alcohol is like that. So usually you have a standard split in terms of deep sleep, REM, and light sleep, which are the core stages, right, of your sleep. And so everything that you eat or you ingest might have an impact on the amount of deep sleep and REM and light sleep that you will have during the night. So usually deep sleep is anywhere between 15 and 25%. Usually a good amount of deep sleep is probably at least 20%. For me, is 18%, and is almost the same for REM. So anywhere between 15 and 25, but usually should be at least 20%. And so sometimes when you intake things like alcohol or carbs, they can have an impact where they reduce the amount of deep and REM.
Are there specific stages? I've heard deep and REM are the most important. So the carbs are affecting those stages of sleep, which then are decreasing your quality?
Correct.
So in terms of engineering better sleep, is there things you guys are doing to maximize or enhance the amount of time you're in deep in REM as opposed to light sleep?
The goal is to reduce the amount of cut a part of light sleep without changing the amount of deep and REM.
So minimize light sleep without changing the amount. So is there a point where it's too much deep sleep or too much REM is bad?
There might be. Human beings don't reach that. So that's why no one knows. I think what we know is anywhere between 20 and 25% of deep and 20 and 25% of REM is good, right? And so you're talking about a couple of hours each. What you don't really need is then 4 hours of light sleep. And that is what we are trying to minimize.
What do you, so I was talking with my brother about sleep this past weekend, and he was saying, if I sleep 8 to 9 hours, I wake up feeling a little bit groggy, like getting too much sleep. Is there such a thing as that?
There is, in practical terms, there is no specific or hard medical evidence, but I agree with that. For everyone is different, the amount. So for example, for me is if I sleep 9 hours, but if I sleep 8 to 8.5, I just feel great. Usually, if you extend the amount of sleep, you tend to get more REM. Because the second part of the night is when there is a predominance of REM. And REM is the phase where you're dreaming and your brain is really reallocating and readjusting all the information collected during the previous day.
Why is it taking place in the second part of the night? Is there any reason?
Yeah, so in the first part is more about deep sleep, and in the second is more about REM. The reason why the body does that is that the body wants first to repair the physical body, because that is really the most important, right? The body doesn't know if you will sleep 3 hours or 7 or 9. And so the first part is focused on repairing the physical body. The second part is focused on your mind and brain.
Is that wrapped in that second part? Is the central nervous system included in that? That's something that our trainers will talk a lot about is repairing and recovering your central nervous system. Is that taking place during the REM stage?
Yeah, the REM stage obviously is known for the phase when we sleep, right? So your body deactivates the control of your brain stops the control of the body, so your body doesn't move at all because you're dreaming, and that is the moment where, again, more than anything, if you are an athlete and you played a certain movement the whole day, that is the moment where that movement will be stored in your brain and solidified.
Interesting. I want to talk a little bit about kind of move to 8 sleep and what you guys are doing and trying to engineer there. What elements are you guys seeing in your research that you are trying to attack and see that we can make a lot of progress in this phase of sleep? I guess what are the most important characteristics you guys are looking at?
Yeah, so right now we are really playing with temperature. Temperature is the big elephant in the room. So if you want to improve your sleep, the first thing you should take care of is temperature. And the reason is your body temperature changes during the night. Is based on your circadian rhythm. And so the temperature that you have at the beginning of the night is different from the one you will have a couple of hours later, and then again a couple of hours later, and in the early morning. So when you hear people saying, oh, you should sleep at 68 degrees, that is wrong. And the reason why it's wrong is it could be right for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but it cannot be right for the whole night because your body will change its own temperature. So what we develop is a technology that can change your body temperature during the night, and we use machine learning to adjust that temperature based on your biometrics. The results are that you can fall asleep up to 20 minutes faster. It depends, how long does it take for you to fall asleep. We see customers reporting up to 20, 40% more deep sleep. They report up to 20% more REM. They toss and turn 40% less, and they wake up 30% less in the middle of the night.
Could you explain a little bit the machine learning part? What specifically is, so if I get in the bed, is it adjusting my temperature throughout the night, or are these pre-done settings that say, oh, Drew, over the past 2 weeks, you have gotten warmer at this period in the night and colder at this period, and you need to adjust your bed temperature and have these inputs?
So the end goal is that we will do everything for you. And so our machine learning, so our technology will change dynamically the temperature for you based on your heart rate, your sleep stages, and your respiration. Right now is a mix of the two things you mentioned. But I'm already sleeping on the next version of this temperature control, and it's completely dynamic.
So you think by solely addressing the issue of temperature, we can vastly just improve the quality of our sleep?
Correct.
Are there any components beyond temperature that you guys are starting to look at?
Yeah, we want to control the whole environment. So you can think of light, noise, humidity. We also know of athletes sleeping in altitude tents with limited oxygen to recover faster because they increase the amount of oxygen that their red blood cells can carry. And so we will start tackling all these factors over the next few years.
Have you ever so the idea with the hyperbaric chamber, you're a big believer in that?
Yeah, we're exploring and testing and looking at medical studies in the space.
So with the temperature control, I was looking on your website. You've got something that just goes over the bed, a cover, and then you've got an actual pod, which is the full mattress. Kind of what will you get the same temperature results with just the cover, and then as opposed to the pod?
Yeah, so we have two products. One, as you were saying, is the whole bed. So you just buy on EightSleep.com the bed. We ship it to your home. You install it. You have the whole full suite of features. The other option is, let's say you already have a bed. You don't want to change it. You don't want to convince your partner to change the whole mattress. You can buy just the cover, and the cover can be installed onto your mattress, your current mattress. Technology is exactly the same. Performance is exactly the same. So it will heat and cool each side of the bed at a different temperature, anywhere between 55 and 110 degrees. And each side of the bed has its own sensors. So we will be able to track everything about your heart rate, HRV, respiration, and sleep.
That's fascinating. How much data do you guys have at this point?
We're really becoming one of the largest database in the world, health database. Obviously, we are in compliance with all the data management and privacy stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the end goal and value for the user is you have this device that you don't have to charge, you don't have to wear, but is there having your back to improve your sleep and monitor your health. You have to do nothing, right? You don't have to change your habits. Just go to bed as you did last night, and we will take care of you.
Is there like an accompanying like app where I can see my data and my history and really see and track how my sleep performance is going?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can control your bed from your phone, right? And so is where you can change or adjust the temperature settings. At the same time, that is where you can see all your metrics. As I was saying, you can see everything about your heart rate, everything about your respiration, everything about your sleep. And there is also content, so like meditation and breathing exercises. And there is a vibration alarm. So we can wake you up without sound. It's just a
Wow.
gentle vibration on your side of the bed to wake up naturally.
And users are saying that wakes them up just fine.
Yeah, it's actually one of the most loved features.
That's all because I feel like so I'll get in a rhythm where I go to bed and I wake up at pretty much the same time. And a lot of times I'll wake up right before my alarm, which is beautiful because I get up and I just feel so energized. But when my alarm goes off and it knocks me out of sleep, I just feel so much more tired and I've got the same amount of sleep. What is that kind of concept in the gentle vibration? I'm sure is kind of this gradual thing that kind of brings you out of sleep. What's kind of occurring there that makes me feel, more slow or more groggy as opposed to vibrant and energized?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, what the dumb alarms do is obviously they just go off at the time you have set. The issue you have is that you might be in the middle of a REM phase or in the middle of a deep phase. And so they will wake you up in the moment. Your body is not ready to be woken up and you will just feel groggy. So, even if you slept the right amount of hours, it's just not a pleasant experience for your body to wake up. What we do instead is a smart alarm, so we make sure through temperature and vibration to wake you up gently. And so we take you out of REM and deep wherever you are, and we make sure that you wake up while you are in light sleep.
Hmm. So in terms of the future of sleep, do you think you mentioned Elon Musk has taken us to Mars? I want to go moonshot in terms of sleeping here. Is there a potential point where we become so efficient at sleep that maybe the user that needed 6 to 8 or 7 to 9 only needs 4 to 6 hours? Do you think that's out there?
I think maybe the 4 to 6 is really challenging, but in the 6 hours range, that is where we want to go. We have an hypothesis how we can achieve that. Or a different way that we could say is, can we save you 25% of your sleep time, right? What if you could sleep 25% less, but get the same amount of rest? That is step number one. Step number two is during that time, because it's still a considerable amount of time, let's call it 6 hours. What else can we do for you? We want to scan your body and be able to make sure that going to bed is more valuable than going to your doctor.
Hmm, that's so awesome, man. I'm a believer. I think I wake up once a night right now to go to the restroom, and I'm wondering like I don't think it's because I've cut back my liquids before bed, but maybe it's the temperature thing with my wife and I just sleeping with the same sheets and maybe me sleeping as a warmer sleeper. So I'm interested to see maybe if this temperature control thing can't keep me asleep through the night. My wife has mentioned it all the time. She's like, I slept fantastic. I didn't wake up once. And I'm like, I've focused on sleep for so long, yet I always wake up at one time in the night. And I feel like I could sleep so much better if I was just able to go to sleep and then wake up when I wake up.
Yeah, 50% of the couples they have different temperature preferences. So the optimal temperature changes based on your metabolism, age, gender, and also fat percentage. So each of us is different, and each of us should have a different setting. What happens in a dumb bed is because it's just made of foam, as your body dissipates heat, that heat gets trapped into the foam. And so your bed just gets warmer and warmer and warmer during the night, which is absolutely not what your body needs to maximize its own sleep performance.
Yeah, I mentioned you said earlier like we've just slept on a piece of foam for so long. Why do you think it's gotten put on the back burner for so long? Just we've been ignorant to it, or we haven't cared, or there just hasn't been enough research in the space?
Yeah, I mean, mattress companies, they don't understand software, they don't understand technology. When you go on the website of some of these companies and they talk about technology, and they refer to memory foam that was invented in 1966, and it's just a piece of foam with just different ingredients, right? That is not a technology, at least not in 2020, when there are reusable rockets going to Mars. And so it's Apple didn't get into the mattress business, but if you think of us, the profile of engineers that we have are engineers that could be at Apple or Google or Tesla or SpaceX. And so that is our DNA, and mattress companies don't have that DNA.
That's fast. I think technology is the missing component there, and certainly if we can leverage it to our advantage, it'll be great. Matteo, this has been fantastic, and I certainly have learned a lot, and I think our listeners too, whether they're in sports business or whatever, will find all this very valuable. So I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and check it out, 8sleep.com.